folks. Welcome to episode 162 of Cowboy Shit. My name is Ted Stovin. He is Dustin Edwards, and we are doing an international pod today, Dustin.
You're live from the Great South.
Yep, checking out a little bit of Gold Canyon this week. What are we up to? I was in Dallas last week. You were in Vegas last week. We're touring. We're doing stuff.
We're on the road. How's things? For those of you that are listening, Ted's got a beautiful set of bunk beds behind him, and
I got the top bunk, obviously.
the Donnie Johansson bunk bed special.
There's a whole crew here right now. It's pretty fun spot. We checked out Barrett Jackson today. That was interesting. Never been there before. Met up with we got the gang back together, the Scotland gang. So went and saw Jeff Chadwick at his place. And for those that don't know Jeff, he's been with Wrangler for a lot of years. And so Jeff and Jim and Don and I went to Scotland back in the spring. Did a golf trip over there. We had a lot of fun. Those guys, somehow they asked me if I wanted to go, and I said, yeah, that would be fun. So I was their driver. I was half their age, and I was their driver.
That's a good crew. Probably lots of good stories told.
Oh yeah, we had a great time. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, good to see everybody. Like, good to get the gang back together from the trip. A lot of cool cars we saw today. A lot of cool like campers and motorhomes and stuff too. There's some really interesting stuff. I was just telling Storm about this. It was called I think it was called the Earth Roamer, is what it was called. And I was like, oh, you better check out how much these things cost. And she looked up on the website, $700,000 for this. Like, it looks like it's on like an F450 or 550. Like, it's just like a ton and a half or something. But it's got this huge camper on it, and it's full off road with like, I don't know, probably got 36-inch tires on it or something. Like, just crazy, humongous rubber on it, so it can go totally off road. Looks like quite the rig.
Have you ever been to an auction and accidentally bought something?
Ooh, I don't think so. Or if I did, maybe I bought a pair of $20 Spurs one time at the local secure auctions in Drayton Valley.
That's always my fear. Like, if you went to Barrett Jackson and you scratch your nose the wrong way,
Man,
you hate to be stuck with a $700,000 camper.
right? What would that be like? Did you ever?
I think
Did you
they
ever
better,
have any?
don't
Sorry, go
you?
ahead.
You gotta
Sorry,
have
say
some
that.
bucks. You gotta have some bucks and be registered there, don't you?
Oh, you probably gotta be registered, yeah. But there was some stuff there that wasn't that expensive. Like there was like a couple like quite a few cars today because it was Tuesday, obviously, so it wasn't that busy. But like there was some stuff that was like 5, 10, 15, 20,000, like barely worth the reserve to put something in there. It's like a $1,500 like auction fee to get a car in there. It's crazy.
It's funny how the Barrett Jackson like 6-figure auction and people put it on a pedestal, but you go to anyone's farm auction anymore and a tractor and a combine go for as much as those. So
Those fancy cars.
you can get the luxury auctions right here in Alberta. Just go to a farm sale with some green stuff in it. And
The local Ritchie brothers.
yeah.
Oh man. No, it was neat to see that. But hey, how's the Roughnecks doing? Better get our bi-weekly Roughnecks update. We haven't had I guess you haven't had a home game in a while though either. You don't have one again till next week.
We went on the road since the last show. So we've had 2 games on the road. We went 1-1. We won in Vancouver, a decisive victory. And then we lost on Saturday night in Colorado. So
To the
we're
Mammoth.
back. The Mammoth, the woolly Mammoth got us. Close game, but fell victim. So now we got a bye week. And then next weekend, we're back in Calgary for 2 home games on the February 2nd, February 3rd against New York and Toronto. So be good to be back.
Is that a bit unusual to have 2 games on a weekend like that? I don't remember hearing about that very much.
No, but we got the building for back-to-back nights because it's NHL All-Star break.
Oh.
So now, because of that, we'll have 4 home games in February. But
Oh, cool.
nice part for us is now we can have the turf down Thursday. We can practice there during the days, pregame. The guys can all come in for one weekend and stay. So it's, from a logistics standpoint, it's super nice to have. From a fan standpoint, back-to-back nights are tough. Most fans will pick one or the other to come to a game. So it definitely hurts you. Some will do both, but it definitely splits the crowd a bit. But logistically, it's super nice to have both at home.
Fair enough. What are the expectations for the team this year?
Well, we should a lot of the similar team to last year. And last year we finished second, so lost out in the semis by 1 goal to go to the finals. So expectations are high. New coach, full new coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple different new pieces from last year. So the expectation is to be in the playoffs and make a run, but there's some really good teams this year. Some teams have went undefeated or lost only once. So they'll be close, but it really this month in February with 4 games, will be the real tell. And we got 5 games, I guess. We go to Toronto the one weekend. So this will be a big month to make our move in the standings.
Well, right on. Right on.
There's your
Hopefully it goes good.
yeah.
There's your what? Sorry, say that again.
That's your Roughnecks update for the week.
Official Roughnecks update.
Yeah.
What about in the rodeo world? What's going on? I guess we're in the middle of Fort Worth. Denver just wrapped up. Our friend of the show, Keenan Vine, was in Denver. Looked like he had a good trip down there. Rodeo in San Diego went really good.
Yep.
Looked like they had a great show there. I like the bullfighter jerseys with the Padres get up. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that was really cool. The big runs back. It's great to see the Canadians doing well. I seen Logan Hay had a really good ride.
Fort Worth last night, yeah.
Fort Worth last night.
Colby Wanchuk. Colby Wanchuk wins more money in Denver for second place than the guy that wins first.
Crazy.
Take that.
I seen Kyle even got a little bit of money out of there. I seen Bo Cooper was doing well down south.
Yeah.
I think he was doing well down there. So it's nice to see the videos of our Canadians kind of picking up where they left off with the NFR and rolling strong. I seen Denham Ross and Trey Gallet were winning some checks down there in the team roping. I seen the Graham brothers won one of those American qualifiers for, I think it was like 10,000 or something. It was really, really good check.
Good for them.
So yeah, Canucks are winning some Canadian cash, which is good right now. This shitty exchange.
Should we make any bold predictions on the NFR this year early in the season? Never thought about doing this before much, I don't think.
Damn early. Well, we better clip it out if we were right. What's your prediction? What's the prediction?
I'm thinking I'm not sure what number to put it at, but like we've had a lot of Canadians at the NFR in the last few years. I'm wondering if we should put a number on it, like what our guess is on what how many Canadians are going to make the NFR this year. Should we put a number on it?
So this year we had 12.
I think it was 12 or 13 when you count up the breakaway roping, right?
Yeah.
It was 11 and 2. It was 13, wasn't it?
Yeah, 13. That sounds right.
13.
I'm 23. You count team ropers as one or as two individuals?
Oh no, it's all individuals, man.
I'm willing to bet that we go 14.
Who are we thinking? I'm trying to make a list here now.
Well, we missed this year with the NFR. We missed Colby Wanchuk and Logan Hay. Hugh Taylor missed it by a spot.
Leighton, Deke, Ben,
Dawson and Dylan just missed it.
Jared, Jordan,
yeah,
Bo in the tie down,
even Culling,
Kendall, and Shelby, and then Culling, and there was probably another steer wrestler that was close. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Holy shit. If everybody made it this year, we could have 17. But that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Bronc riders, 7 Canadian Bronc riders if they all made it.
That'd be unreal.
Wouldn't it? Damn.
I'm going 13.
You're saying 13 again? You said 14 earlier. You changed your mind.
14.
So 14. Damn. I like that. I'm going to say that would be a new record, I think, 14. But I guess technically Kendall and Shelby don't count. So 12 would be a new one. So I'm going to say 13. 13 in the major events plus Shelby and Kendall. Let's say 15. 15 total. You said 14. Let's see 14. If we're right coming back here. Of course, maybe not everybody's going to make it, but 15 would be sweet. That still would be 2 less. And how about 7? I'm going to say 7 Bronc riders. It's going to be like the Wrights, only with the Canadians in the Bronc riding. I like that.
Yeah, it'd be darn cool.
Man, and I guess I got to mention, too, our PBR Canada Cup Series is back. Red Deer, Alberta, February 3rd, the PV Mart Centrium. One big show Saturday night, 7 p.m., getting the gang back together. A lot of our PBR guys, I got to give a shout-out Chad Hartman. did good the other day. Get a top 5 in. I think he was top 5 in Denver and top 5 in Reno too. Won a round, I believe, in Reno the first night. So kudos
He's
to
rolling.
Chad for getting out there, getting it done, getting a ride in. Weston Davidson getting a couple rides as well. So good to see those guys. Nick Tetz will be back at some point. Dakota Butter, once his shoulder heals up, I think his intention was to be back for Red Deer. So yeah, saw. I actually got a funny story. We were in Dallas, like coming back from the market, and Storm went somewhere, and I went the other way for a second, like in the airport. And she's like, "Oh, I think I saw Jordan Hansen at breakfast." So we walked by the Chili's, and of course, Jordan's having a breakfast there. So had a quick visit with him. And then we get to Phoenix over here, and I see this guy walking in front of us, just happens to pass by us, and he's got a Wild Rose Rodeo Challenge Finals jacket on, right? And I'm like, oh, of course, we got to know who this is. So I go and I look at the guy, and I'm like, he's carrying his Bronx out on the plane. I'm like, I don't know who this is. And so I get around him on the front, and I'm like, Who are you? He's like, oh, I'm Kyle Wanchuk. I'm like, man, I've never met you, but it's nice to meet you, Kyle. Like I just never run into him before, so it's kind of fun to run into him at the airport.
Isn't he rocking the mustache like his brother now, or
Oh
what?
yeah, like once he said he was Kyle, I was like, oh, obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
Good to meet you, Kyle. Sorry, I didn't know who you were.
Yeah, like he's been getting some checks, and I also seen that Sawyer Erickson picked up some checks too. So
Ah,
those are the next. I always think those two are the next two, and like a Q Taylor and those guys. I think those are kind of the next group of guys that are coming, and they're riding good. So
well, and I hope that Kyle got his what do you call it? Got his qualification or got to go to the next round on the American because when we were talking there, he said that that they might have like bumped him out of the next round because he didn't make a tiebreaker or something. So hopefully he's advancing in there and can make the American. And man, so speaking of that, how cool is it that Post Malone's going to the
yeah,
American now? Isn't that
yeah,
neat?
yeah,
Yeah, didn't he want to do like a collaboration with Coulter Wall at one point? And maybe Coulter
yeah.
doesn't get it done with him yet, but that's
Mixing her
cool.
up. Yeah,
I like
totally cool.
that. I think it's really neat. I think it's a cool mashup and having those, the American rodeo, I would say was one of the biggest days in Western sports throughout the year to pay out that kind of money in one day and to have a guy like Post Malone, like it's totally off out of left field. It's
Oh yeah,
kind of like what Rodeo Houston would do with having totally like different acts, different nights. But this is strictly a rodeo, and to have that in the middle, I think it's really neat. I hope it goes well.
yeah. It's Houston. You can see George Strait one night and Pitbull the next night, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
and then some Spanish band the next night.
yeah. But I think this is unique. I think this is super unique, and it's kind of cool. And what do you think of talking about merging of worlds? What do you think about the UFC fighter that's going to ride?
Oh yeah, Cowboy
You
Cerrone. Okay,
yeah,
okay. We talked about that. So what we're gonna do though? Let's wrap up this first part of the show, Dustin. Get to the interview, and then stay tuned after the interview. We're gonna talk about Cowboy Cerrone and Twisted Steel from Dana White. Gonna be a good one, but not to be left out. Our interview this week with Troy Dunn, 1998 PBR World Champion, and Austin Beasley, Canadian bull rider, made the NFR. Uh, Back in 2001, I believe the year was. We'll get to the full show, but got to catch up with these guys over the holidays, and I've been making an effort to get ahead of these shows for us. So we're kind of like got these shows in the bag. So during the winter when we're getting busy, you're just getting busy with the season, and we kind of wanted to get things kind of done ahead of time. So enjoy the interview here though with Troy and Austin, and we'll be back here in a bit. Once again, this is Cowboy Shit. I'm Ted Stovin. He's Dustin Edwards. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the interview. All right, this week on the show, we've got a couple very special guests, two pretty pretty elite bull riders between CFR NFR qualifier in Austin Beasley and the 1998 champion of the PBR and 1995 and 97 World Finals champion. Also went to the NFR. He's one of only two Australians to win the PBR, win a world title in the bull riding. But thanks for joining us today, Austin Beasley and Mr. Troy Dunn. Thank you guys for doing this.
Good to have you. Thanks, Mike.
So you guys got a school tomorrow and the next day, and I guess this show's not coming out for a little while now, but the school. Tell me how the school came to be, and because Troy, you've been doing schools for a long time, but is this one of the first ones on Canadian soil?
Yeah, sure is, mate. First one here, and Austin come over earlier in the year, and he was on holiday with his young fella at home, and he called into home, and we buggered off and spent a bit of time together, and we hatched a plan, and Austin come back home and got it all organised, and we got plenty of fellas coming on the weekend, so looking forward to it. And I've had heaps of schools at home over the last. Well, I done my first school actually at home in '92, so I've had a lot of schools and enjoy doing them.
And this is gold buckle. It's your gold buckle bull gear and gold, like, is that the name of the schools too, Troy?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that's our company, Gold Buckle. So I suppose that's what you'd call it, I suppose, mate. Yeah.
How long have you guys been doing that for?
I don't know how long we've called it, whatever it is, but I've always just had them, under my name, I suppose. And it's been, I don't know how long since we've had the company Gold Buckle, but that's what it's been the last probably a dozen years, I suppose.
What about you guys meeting each other? Was it? I'm assuming it was in the bull riding. Like, well, you're both competing because your careers overlapped, obviously. But I wonder, there was probably some overlap when you guys were both leading the different national contingencies of the PBR. Austin, you were leading PBR Canada, and Troy, you were PBR Australia. Was there some overlap then too, as well? Is that right?
Well, I don't know. I remember when Troy was just a young fella, he come to one of my bull riding schools.
Going back a while.
No. Yeah, I just I grew up idolizing this guy, My first memory of Troy Dunn was when I was 11 years old at the Cranbrook Rodeo, and he rode a bull there named Kathmandu of Wayne Volz. And he didn't just ride him, he absolutely clobbered that bull, started spurring him as soon as he turned his head out the gate, and hard. I was at the far end of the chutes watching, peeking my head over, watching, and I was trying to figure out what all that noise was, and it was him spurring on this bull. And that son of a gun buck, how many points were you? 75 or 80?
Yeah.
Huh?
Might have cracked 70.
Huh? Probably closer to 90, but 90s were hard to come by in 1988, 1990, somewhere in there. And that was my first impression of Troy Dunn. And so I kept pretty close eye on him for the rest of my life. Yeah. Fortunate enough to contribute and donate some entry fees towards the Gold Buckle Foundation.
What about what, like, you guys would have met back then? But Troy, how did you ever end up in Canada? I know that you spent a lot of time in Canada early on in your career, maybe throughout the whole thing. But how did you end up on Canadian soil in the first place? What was the connection there? Was it like wasn't Daryl Church kind of? But he was from New Zealand though, wasn't he? Who did you come over with in the beginning? How did that ever happen?
Yeah, well, Daryl was already over here sort of when I got here, but we had a bicentennial series at home in the APRA, which is the equivalent of the CPRA, and we had a lot of US fellas come over and Canadians. So I kind of got mates with some of the Campbell brothers. There was Gordon Campbell come over to start with, and he stayed at home, and then when I turned up over here, Matthew come along and picked me up at the airport, so I stayed with him. And that was, I had no idea. I was this boy from the bush, in Australia, and all I knew was this is where it was at. in North America, I didn't actually really know the difference between Canada and US, but these fellows were from Canada, and so I thought, well, this was the place to go, and I knew these fellows and lined it up for them fellows to pick me up. And there was no phones back then, so I didn't really know, whether I was going to be picked up from the airport. It was arrangements were made, weeks before, and I just hoped that someone was going to be there. And as it turned out, Matthew was there, and so I stayed with him for a fair while there, and he set me up, and I got organised. He set me up with a motor car, and I travelled with some different fellows, to start with, and then I started staying over at Strathmore with the New Zealand fellows, and then started travelling, with some better fellows in the CPRA, like West Sear and those sort of blokes, and went on from there. But it was the best time I've ever had, really. Rodeoing was up here in the CPRA.
And weren't there in that Strathmore area, Austin, correct me if I'm wrong here too, but would it be some of the Hartel crew, like I
That's
forget
right.
who they're related to. Isn't that,
Yep.
Didn't you stay with them early on? Because a lot of the Kiwi folks stayed with them too, didn't they?
That's right, mate. Yeah, it was Dixie. Dixie
Yeah.
was there. He stayed there with her, and then just up the road, Bob Hartel was there, and there's a few bronc riders there, Adam Newman and Darren Clark, NFR fellows, and that rodeoed from out of up here as well. So yeah, it was a good place good central place, and we had a ball at those places.
When did you end up going down south? Like when did that happen once you got to Canada? Because if this was step one, when did you go to the US? Or did you go to some of the CPRA stuff? And like, did you make the CFR, the Canadian finals too? I don't know that stat. I guess you wouldn't have been allowed to back then. Austin was all Canadian until
Yeah.
08?
No, he was.
Correct.
He won the year end in the CPRA. What 91, 90,
Yep.
91?
Won
He was
one season later, but couldn't even go to the CFR.
But he wasn't a Canadian, so he couldn't go to CFR.
Oh, no way. What did you think of that at the time? Like, would you have? It's kind of wild that was the case. I kind of forgot that it didn't change till 08.
Yeah, well, it didn't bother me too much because I knew what the rules were, and I remember, Shane Parker, he was in the same boat, as was Glenn O'Neill and Bernie Smythe and John Wiggles and some of those fellows that were making, had enough money to go to the finals but weren't allowed. So I knew what the rules were, but I liked it up here, and I made the NFR from up here. Really, most of my money that was won up here. So, and then the Canadians really kind of embraced me, I guess, as one of theirs at the NFR. Whenever I'd ride, the Canadian flags would go up or whatever. So, I was fortunate, that they accepted me pretty well.
And there's not a lot of records from that, like, kind of early 90s. I'm on the Pro Bull Stats side of things a lot of the time and see that side of it. But two times NFR, 1991 and a couple years later. What was the
95?
95?
Yeah.
And Austin, you went 97 and then qualified in 01 too, right? Or did you go twice?
No, I went 97.
But did you get hurt one time that kept you out of it another time, or what happened there?
No, that was same time.
Same time, but you had to sit out a couple rounds. Did you get I was reading up on something, and did you hit heads or something, or what happened? You had to sit out a round or two.
Yeah, I rode 2 nights, second perf. I won second in the round. Bull tagged me in the cheek with his horn, busted all my facial bones and orbital socket and all the rest of it, and took me out for the rest of the week. Oh. So my NFR was pretty short-lived.
Oh, geez. And that was the one time. That's a tough way to do it.
That's the way she goes. That's rodeo, Teddy.
Yeah, I guess so, eh? I wanted to ask though, on the creation of the PBR side of things for both of you guys, that was right in the middle of your careers. What was what was that? What was that like as you were competing? I know actually Cody one time. I don't know if he said it on the show or not, but I think Cody had an offer to buy a share in the PBR when it was time to found it, and he turned him down or something. And the first meeting I think was in Calgary. I could be wrong about that, but what was that like for you guys both being in that world at that time?
That was a little bit before my time when they were, when the shares were offered out. But yeah, Troy has a good story on that.
Yeah, well, I think the first meeting was at Scottsdale, Arizona, and
Okay.
and I was there in '92, and they said, it was going to cost us $1,000, and I said, well, I didn't have the money on me because when you're young and you're rodeo and you haven't always got a lot of money on you, so I didn't have the coin on me at the time. But I said to Cody Lambert, I'll see you next week, and I'll fix you up for $1,000. So I didn't see him next week because I was up somewhere else, but I see him a couple of weeks later, and I said I got the money, I got the $1,000 to put in. He said, "Oh, don't worry about it, it's all gone through." And I thought, well, good. Saved me $1,000, but as it turns out, it probably cost me $4.5 million. But we still did not too bad out of it because I always, back in those days, every time you made the world finals, they'd offer you shares, and so my wife Jackie had enough sense to buy the shares, and when it sold for the first time to the New York company, we did pretty well out of it. So it worked out good for me financially anyway.
So you told Cody you're gonna give him the money, but then they never put you down for a share originally. That's what happened?
Yeah, pretty much. I said, man, everything was kind of blasé a bit back in those days, and I said that I would do it, so I was going to, but as it turned out, I didn't see him for a couple of weeks later, so. He said it had all gone through and everybody put their money in. So,
Oh,
yeah.
so there was, geez, did everybody just put cash in? Is that what you're saying? Everybody had like $1,000 in their pocket and they just put that money in. That was the deal.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm assuming that most fellas probably give them a check.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the story was with Gaffney, but he put $1,000 check in. And it bounced.
That's cowboy story. That's cowboy shit, Ted.
Oh man. So they obviously he still got a share. Did they boot him out over that? I don't remember if his name's on the list originally.
Yeah, no, he fixed him up.
They fixed him up.
He's definitely one of the founders. Yep.
Jeez. Well, does it mean much difference to you on that side though to have been a founder or not, Troy? Like, what are you were still?
Yeah, I definitely wish that I had the money on me at the time, financially wise, and just to be a part of that group and part of that history would have been something pretty special. But yeah, it wasn't meant to be. So I still remember the day. Actually, Clint Bronga won the bull ride on Unicorn. He was 91. And I still remember the bull ride and how awesome it was, and to be associated with those fellas would have been pretty special.
And you're still, even maybe not a founding member technically on that side of it, but I mean, 2005, you're in the PBR Ring of Honor, and you're coach of Team Australia, the first Aussie to win the world title, and we're the first up until about 2 weeks ago, I guess, till Kai won the PRCA side of things, but the PBR has been a huge part of what you've done over your career, though, has it not?
Yeah, for sure. It got to the stage when I was rodeoing in '95 and doing a lot of miles, and we were doing a lot of touring pros as well, and trying to make both the NFR and the PBR finals a pretty hectic schedule. And then again, so I made the finals in '95, and then the NFR and the World Finals. But so then to go hard again all year in '96, and then it got a little bit political for me. There's too many turnout fines and them not setting you up where you would have liked to have been, and with the PBR schedule, it was end up being just I was ready just to do PBRs and do the touring pros because there's plenty of those by then, and do the televised Bud Light Cup event. So that was a pretty full schedule for me, and I wasn't getting any younger, and I was glad that that came along, and I was able to spend more time at home and spend more time doing what I really like to do, which is training. I was a big advocate, for being in the gym and studying nutrition and getting the most out of myself on the weekends and working hard through the week, as opposed to rodeoing and spending a lot of time on the road and eating rubbish and smoking and drinking and all that type of thing. I've done plenty of that. So it was a good time that the PBR come along for me, I think, and was able to, I guess, for me anyway, that was the best part of my career as far as I rode better later on in my years when I had more experience, getting on those better bulls every weekend was a bit of a treat, really. It wasn't a drawing game, and it was a riding game, and so it was back in those days. It was just something that was new, and it was the flavour of the month, and it was good to be a part of early in the piece.
Were you there in the transition between when, like, obviously Tough was part of it in the beginning, but what was, like, were you around at that point when he kind of got pushed to the outside of the PBR side of things?
Yeah, sure was. I used to go to a few with Tough because Jackie and Tracy were friends, and our kids grew up with Tough and Tracy's kids a bit, and so we were around them a fair bit. So we got to hear both sides, and I was on the board as well. So we got to kind of hear both sides of what all went down there, and there was always two sides to the story, and it was a bit unfortunate the way it all panned out, I suppose. For Tough, it would have been good for him to still be in there, I suppose, but that's the way it goes, and it's the way it went, I guess.
Well, I've kind of read a little bit into kind of what happened, and we don't got to get into it, I guess, today, but like, there's got to be a difference in there somewhere, and somebody had a vision this way or that way, but it was really for the riders early on, was it not? I don't want to say that's changed completely, but it's definitely a business, and we're in the entertainment business now, owned by one of the biggest entertainment companies in the world. But it was more so the bull riders putting everything together and doing almost everything until Randy Bernard came along too. Like, you guys as the board would have hired, you probably would have been in the room that hired Randy at one point, right? Too, wouldn't you have, Troy?
I don't think. No, I wasn't there at the beginning. I think I started on the board probably about 90, 97, something like that. And Randy was already in there, but Randy was a big advocate for the bull rider as well. And there was just differences of opinions with Tough and Randy. And I think, as far as I'm concerned, I think the main issue surrounding where the bull riders lost control, or it stopped being about the bull riders, was when, after the first sale, when it went to the hands of the Spire Capital investment firm in New York, I think that's when the bull riders didn't have any more say, and that was kind of sad in a lot of ways, because it's that way now, and it doesn't matter where you go in the world, whether it's home or Canada or US, wherever. I don't think the guys have much of a say, and it's just whoever's running it's more interested in delivering the bottom line for the big organisations than than looking after the bull riders. And don't get me wrong, I think the bull riders have a pretty fair go. It's never been better. You know, they're riding for more money. They're getting on the best bulls in the world. They got the best judges. That's probably debatable. But in saying that, they do what they can to make it fair. There's 4 judges as opposed to rodeo. There's only 2 judges. So if anybody comes to me and says it's not for the bull riders, well, there's 2 sides to every story, like I say, and they need to think about that. You know, we could still be riding $300 rodeos and getting on rubbish bulls with rubbish judges. So it's come a long way. And like I say, there's always 2 sides.
When did the 2-judge system turn to 4?
Sorry, buddy, what was that?
I'm wondering when did it go from 2 judges to 4? Like, that would have been during your career. Like both of you guys would have probably changed to 4 somewhere along the way.
Yeah, it's more than I could tell you, Teddy.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but I'm pretty certain would have been probably around 94, 95. I don't know whether there was. I went to the finals in 94, World Finals, the MGM. I'm not sure whether there's 4 judges there, but I'd be pretty adamant there would have been 4 judges at the World Finals in 95 and probably for the most of the year in 95. That'd be my assumption, mate. Yeah.
okay. I'm looking at some of these scores, and like 97, you ride Red Wolf. It seemed like, how many times did you get on Red Wolf and ride him? I see at least 2 for sure, but you guys got along pretty good.
Yeah, we were 2 all. I got on him 4 times. The first time he bluffed me a little bit, and then I rode him to win the World Finals, and then not long after that, I was 93 on him in Tampa, and then I got on him 1 year just before we went to Brazil, I think in 97 at Springvale, Arkansas. Yeah, he threw me over his head and broke some ribs. So he wasn't, just because you'd rode him before didn't mean you were going to ride him again. You know, you were going to be very busy on Red Wolf every time.
Huh. Austin, I was looking at some of your stats too, and some of the stuff I saw on Pro Bowl stats.
Red Wolf?
Not on Red Wolf, no. But did you get on him too?
I got on him when I was in college. I went to a bull riding in Cottonwood, California, and I got on that bull in the short round. And I've never had my ass handed to me like that, quite like that ever in my life. You know.
Oh, geez.
I was scared to death. That was only 4 months after he stepped on Brent Thurman, you know.
Oh, really?
And so I knew I was tying my hand to a real deal. And boy, when he was a big bull, he filled the chutes, and he left there like a bolt of lightning. And I rode him for about 2.5 jumps, and when he turned back, boy, I mean, he flung me out of there, and I hit the ground on the middle of the arena on my back. And I spun in circles like a turtle in a half shell. Yeah, and I thought, wow, you know, I really got my eyes open to a bull of that caliber, because I was pretty young, you know. I'd never been on a bull that really came with it that strong, you know. And so I'll never forget that moment. I'll never forget the feeling of what that bull felt like underneath you. He was incredible. I watched the videos of the guys that ride him, and none of them made it look easy, because he was a handful. Yeah.
Did you riding left-handed? A lot of the videos I've seen of Red Wolf, he went to the right. Did he mostly go to the right, or am I kind of? Mm-hmm. Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, mostly
started right. Yeah.
Yeah.
He looks like he'd be tougher for a left-handed guy.
He was tough for a 19-year-old punk.
Troy, I want to go back to when you were rodeoing and going on the PBR side of things. And Austin, this is a question for you too. Like, being from Canada to make the NFR, you can do good in Canada, but it takes like, you got to be on the road a lot and be away from home a ton. And you guys both, like, where did you stay when you were away, and who were you with in those years when you were on the road trying to make the NFR?
Well, for me, um, I traveled with Kelly Armstrong and Robert Bowers quite a bit. There was a handful of us at that time that were pretty wolfy at a high school level and an amateur level, and we all started out pretty young. You know, I filled my permit when I was 17. I had my pro card when I was 17 years old, and you know, the next year I made the CFR. Following year I made the NFR. You know, so we just kept pushing, and it wasn't that I did it on my own because, you know, to win a high school title, I had to beat Kelly Armstrong and
Robert.
Rob Bell, and you know, there was some pretty good hands that were going. BJ Cramps and those guys were all the ones there, and so it was hard to win at a high school level even at that point, you know, because there was just there was 6 or 8 kids that could all, you know, be 80 points or more at a high school level. So yeah, I traveled with Kelly most of the time when we went down there, and you know, he was a great he was a great competitor. You know, he was a great rival. You know, we pushed each other to get better, and we were competing against one another, and it didn't seem like we were up against the top 15 in the world. It was still in our truck, you know, so who could win more. And so that's how it was for us, you know, I guess at that point. Troy, I think you rode Wes here a lot, didn't you?
Yeah, early in the piece, 91 with Wes, and then I had a couple of years in Dallas Fort Worth area where I went with different fellas, Scott Mendez and Cody Custer and Raymond Wessel and some of those fellas, and a couple of Australian fellas too, Rodney Lidgard, Hubcap, and Scott Mains and some of those fellas, and then I rodeoed back out of up here in 94 with Wes. And then went back to the US in 95, back to Dallas Fort Worth area and 96 and finished me sort of riding days out back down there. But Scott Fraser in 95 and 96. And then when we quit rodeoing, it was more, you know, rodeoing from just on your own, going to PBRs on the weekend type of thing. So, but yeah, Scott Fraser was very good to travel with. He did 3 rough stock, and as well, it was hard to get set up sometimes in the PRCA with Fraser doing 2 or 3 events. But him and I used to have a little log that we keep on our riding percentage, because we both thought that if we rode most of our bulls, we'd at least win a day money. So we had a log going there, and we were always pretty well neck and neck on the riding average, and he was hard to deal with. He'd make the whistle more times than not. Oh, Scott Fraser.
Well, he's got a kid over here riding at the moment, doesn't he?
Is that Cody?
Cody Fraser, yeah.
Oh, right on. Right on. Cody's riding in a lot of our PBR Canada events and Canadian Pro Rodeos, like CPRA shows too. He's making his way. That's good. That's awesome. Well, so Troy, you mentioned riding percentage. I got 2 comments. So the first one though is like, on the records here on Pro Bowl Stats, it's not very complete for your career, but out of the 10 seasons on record here, the only one where you were sub 50% was 2005, and by the numbers, you would have been 38 years old at that point, which is not young for a bull rider either.
Mm-hmm.
So what was I'm trying to think what my point was, but my other comment though, Austin, was that you guys, like between you and Kelly and Rob and Glenn was competing at the time too, and Robert, but like I think that was the greatest era of bull riding ever from Canada, and I think it was pretty cool that you guys were all going together and at that top level, because I wanted to say that you guys all made each other better and went and traveled, kind of like what Jordan and Jared are doing right now. Like, right, they're going and making the finals, and Kai's in with the right crew, and they're going and making each other better. But Troy, you had to go out on a limb and go by yourself to get over here. It's not a short flight to get to Canada or to get to the US. And I can't imagine, like, I don't like being away from home a ton, but you were never really home for a lot of your career.
Yeah, well, I went to boarding school when I was grade 1, so it didn't bother me being away from home, and most of my school years were spent at boarding school, so it wasn't that hard, and I didn't really mind being on my own that much. But definitely, when you talk about travelling partners, they can, you lift each other up, and there's a lot of camaraderie there, and if you got the right travelling mate, you'll make each other better, and that was with Scott Fraser and I, with the percentage log. That was just another way we pushed each other, and there'd be a lot of backwards and forth and hacking on each other when one was ahead of the other and this type of thing. And it was, I think it was the same with Wes, just being positive and not, lifting one another up. When one fella's down, well, you always, and the funny part about it, rodeoing too, is that you're all competing for the same thing. You always travel with someone in the same event. So, it's pretty neat, that those fellas still do it to this day. You got Stetson and Kai. No one was happier for Kai than, when he cinched the world, when he comes on the back of the chute there and Stetson's giving him a big hug. Well, that's what it's all about at the end of the day. And like I say, if you got the right travelling buddy, you can lift each other up and make one another better.
And Austin, I kind of buried that comment about you guys, and I forgot to mention, like, BJ. You've already mentioned BJ, but then even Ruben was up there at a similar time, and Rob Bell. Like, I got to say it again, but, like, I thought you guys were the elite for Canadian bull riding of all time. I know that. Well, and even Daryl wins the world a couple of years, like, kind of in that era too, a few years before you guys, and Cody as well. But they're like, to have 3 guys at the finals in the same year, I think is, I don't know when it might happen again, but I just wanted to give you guys kudos for going out and doing it.
Yeah, you're missing a big one. You're missing a big one, Ted. Wade Joel.
Yeah, and Wade was
Wade Joel was a legend. He's a forgotten guy that nobody talks about much, but I remember Wade Joel and the effort that he put out and the talent level that he had. He went to the NFR season leader that year. Didn't have great finals, but he led the pack all the way in, and all us rookies, we made it too, but Wade Joel, he dominated the sport for that season, and and that's not to be forgotten about. He won a couple Canadian titles, but he was every year that he went there, come Sunday, he was one of the guys that he was still one of the guys in the mix, So he was a guy that was, he was a guy that I didn't travel with Wade much, but I damn sure paid attention to who he was and what he was willing to put on the line every time he nodded his head, because he got whistles on bulls that would have just got guys bucked off at the whistle, and he had the ability and the heart and desire to hang in there until the whistle blew, and Glenn Keeley was like that too, and Glenn Keeley taught me a lot. He taught me a lot when I was young, when I wasn't ready to learn or take the lesson, maybe, but he taught me how to rodeo smart. He taught me how to rodeo on a cowboy's budget, splitting a Motel 6 ways and to the penny, if you rode good, you went and ate afterwards. If you didn't, you got hungry and you waited till the next one. And some of those things were tough lessons to learn at the time, but later on in life, I really learned to appreciate what he had to offer by demonstrating that. He didn't tell us anything. That was just how he was. And we wanted to ride with him. And if he was willing to let us ride in his car or in our car, but if he was willing to come with us and break us into the road, we were all ears and all eyes. So we sponged off people like that, and that's probably how we learned to adapt to life on the road, and to still putting out the effort when times got tough and you got beat up and sore, and the odds were going against you and you couldn't do much to change it. You learned how to grit it out and get things to turn around for yourself. So, yeah.
What was your experience of Glenn, Troy? And I have to look back and look, but you must have been in Albuquerque the night that he passed.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't there, and I just heard about it, and yeah, I just remember Glenn being serious competitor and a fair income human. You know, he's awesome bloke. We actually went up to his campsite there yesterday. We went and visited the Keeley Ranch, and young Chase took us up there. So I hadn't been there before, so it was a moving experience. But yeah, awesome lad.
I'm surprised that you didn't end up at their place when you were in Canada, because Austin, you must have been over there too, because I've heard legendary stories about the practice pen at the Keeley place in the Quonset. So I'm kind of surprised that, Troy, you spent time in the 90s in Canada and you didn't end up at the Keeley place.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, I knew all the boys, but yeah, never made it out there until a couple of days ago.
Yesterday. Wow. But yeah. Austin, you had to have some stories about the Quonset, the practice pen.
Not a lot, no.
Really?
But I knew all about it. I was out there and I seen, I knew enough to know that there was a lot of value in what he had right there. Glenn, he'd have a tough weekend, or he might have a couple where he didn't win much, hit the ground more often than he wanted to. And boy, he'd show up, go back to that Quonset, and he'd have about 3 bulls around there that he'd practice on. Probably have a longhorn, and then something else, a couple others, Longhorn to jump and kick and snap his chin and raise him up, and he'd get on that one, keep his chin down, and it wouldn't necessarily spin or whatever, but would snap his chin up and make sure he got thinking about that, and he'd have one turn back and another one probably somewhere in the middle of that. And boy, I'll tell you, he'd give him a bath. Boy, he'd lay a licking on him. He'd take out all his frustrations from the week before on them 3 poor old practice bulls. But boy, you could tell when you'd see Glenn Keeley have a couple bad weeks, you could tell where he'd spend his time. It was in that barn, and he'd come back with a vengeance, boy, and he'd tear him up. He'd tear him up as soon as he got back on track and got back to town. And I'm not talking about ranked bulls. His practice bulls were probably 73, 74 point, 68 point bulls, but they were bulls that he could dominate. They were bulls that he got on, and he knew he was the one in charge, and he'd do that as much as he needed to until he come back and he believed that that's how he felt on any bull that he drew, and it was easy to tell, when he was on his game, he was a dominant force.
So who spurred bulls harder, Austin? Was it Troy or Glenn?
It'd be me.
Boy, you put me on the spot, Ted.
I'm thinking though, that was your first story was about spurring a bull. So I know Glenn had some distance. I know that, but I wonder.
I don't know. I got great memories of both of them. I remember the first time I went to the CFR and opening night. Glenn Keeley had Curly Sue, and that son of a bitch turned back, and went out there quick, about 3 or 4 jumps, and was getting away, and then turned back and sucked her back. And boy, he come, he had his foot in his ear, and he went at him and just clobbered that bull right from the turn back. And it was one of the greatest things I'd ever seen. And then I watched Troy when the first time I'd ever seen Troy Dunn when I was 11 years old. And that was as hard as I've ever seen anybody ever spur a bull ever in my entire life to this day. So, yeah, I'll probably say Troy Dunn. But they were both incredible, They were masters at it. And it's a demonstration of control. It's a willingness to expose yourself to the elements of getting bucked off and no score when you're exposing yourself that much on a bull, especially when they buck, to me, that really mattered. To me, when I got to see guys that were willing to risk that much when they knew that they were going to be able to ride that bull and win a good check, but they went at it and threw every single thing they had at them, to show their dominance in that sport. That was the part that was impressive. That separates. That's where the elites kind of, split from the pack, that's where you really learn to admire and adore people that are a step or a level or two ahead of you, and you appreciate that you've still got a lot of work to do if you ever want to get to that to that stage in your career. And I was fortunate to be around both of these guys and some others too. So yeah, it was they're both legendary.
I want to get into the technical side of bull riding and teaching Troy and some of the principles that way. But before we get to that, I gotta go back a couple steps just to Kai. So a couple questions on that. What does it mean for you to see Kai win the PRCA world title? In your shoes, having been the only Australian prior to win at that level.
Well, it was amazing, really, because he'd been at home for a little while. He turned up. His father brought him home, when he was about 15, and we sort of could tell pretty quick that he was going to be, a serious contender, just because of his discipline, and he was tough, but and he had a good attitude, but his discipline, for me, that's. If somebody shows a lot of discipline, that goes a long way with me, because it just shows that they're willing to go to the extra lengths. With teaching a lot of guys, you get a lot of different kind of fellas, and you'll get a lot of blokes with a lot of talent, but they seem to squander it through lack of discipline. And Kai had that discipline straight away, I could see.
And what do you mean by discipline, Troy? Like, do you mean like the working out side of things, or the diet, or improving after getting bucked off, or what's your definition of the discipline side of things?
Yeah, all of the above, mate. It's a whole process, and if you lack any of that stuff, you won't reach the level that you want to, and so it's the practice, and it's right down to the training and the thinking about it, and the even down to the nutrition and what you feed your body. And like I say, I was always a big advocate for it, and I think that's, to me, what sorts the men out from the boys at the highest level. It's the guy there's a couple of exceptions, and I think probably JB and Tough are maybe a little bit of exceptions, and I tell fellas at my schools, it's there's only one JB and there's only one Tough, and for the rest of us, all just hard work. But those fellas had an amazing belief, I guess, and they believed every time. It wouldn't matter how many times they got thrown on their backs, they'd get up and they'd believe in the next one, they were going to ride the next one. For the rest of us, we have to go home and we have to work on it, and we have to, and mind you, you don't know what's going on in those fellas' heads. They could be thinking about it all the time, 24/7, about how they're going to go about dominating their next bull. You don't know what goes on. But I do know from seeing, different young men that I've had to do with over the years, and it just seems like, they're all endowed with X amount of ability. I don't think that sort of doesn't register in my in what I believe that someone's going to make it. I don't rate talent, because it'll only get you so far, but I do rate a good attitude, toughness, and a lot of discipline. And getting back to Kai, he had those things, mind you. He had a lot of ability as well, which has helped him do the job a bit easier and do what he wants to do on the back of a bull a lot easier than someone that struggled, with ability. But yeah, to see Kai do what he did and us be there, we could see that he was having a good year. And then we'd made arrangements to come over and do the NFR and come snow skiing and do what we were going to do. And as it turned out, Stetson pulled away on him, towards the end, but we were still committed to come over. And then when we got here and the way it all unfolded, and the way Kai conducted himself with how much heart he showed, that was in true Aussie style, I thought. And to have all his family and friends and for us to be a part of it was pretty amazing. And to sit with his mum and dad, I've known those guys for a long time, and see their reaction and how proud they were. Pretty special time.
I've been asking the question a little bit, and kind of just it's probably I don't know how to explain it, Austin, but I've been wearing my Live Like Ty hat lately, because I was in the building that night when Kai, I think it was round 7, right, when he only got a ride, wins 99,000 the night after getting knocked out. But I think about the head injury side of it, and I just worry a little bit. And I'm sitting on the edge of my seat when he's riding again after the night before. And I know it's tough, and I know it's cowboy to go and get on again like that, but it worries me on the head injury side of it. And also, I know that we lost Ty Posabon a few years ago, but I'm just kind of curious on the counter side of it, what you guys' thoughts are that way. Austin, you can start, and Troy, tell me too. But like, I just makes me wonder what you guys' thoughts are on that side of it.
It's a tough question. Both Troy and I, we started into this sport. We didn't wear vests or helmets or anything. I got my guts stepped on when I was 16 years old, and I was pretty near died in the hospital in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. I wore a vest under my shirt so nobody could tell when I was 17 years old, because I felt like it was the right thing to do. And shortly after, Tipperary come out with these vests, and they got cool, and everybody started wearing them. Pretty soon they become standard. And then I got to see it towards the end of my career with headgear. I wasn't the first to jump on board to wear a helmet. In fact, I never wore one. There's no question that it makes more sense to ride bulls with proper equipment. A mouth guard's a good idea, a vest's a good idea, helmet's a good idea, but you're a different breed of person when you're a bull rider. Not too many people on this planet would ever sit there and look at a bull and watch a bull buck like they do and think, I want to get on that son of a bitch because I think I can ride him. You don't think the same as most people. So most people looking at that situation think you should wear all the necessary equipment, but they'd also say you're an idiot for ever getting on one of those things, So I think it's hard to judge a guy that's put in a spot like that to do that. Most of it's your attitude and your mindset when it comes to separating yourself from average as a bull rider. To become great as a bull rider, you got to make huge sacrifices. You got to be able to have a mindset that's unlike anybody else that in order to reach that level. And if you're worried about getting hurt doing what you're doing, you're already beat. It can't be something that's on your mind, or it's going to cost you somewhere. And so when you take a stance and you take off your helmet and you put on your cowboy hat and you hang out with JB Mooney and you try to adopt some of the probably just that impenetrable, perseverance, focus, and dedication, and faith in yourself and your abilities, and you make a sacrifice to surround yourself with people in that, with that mindset in order to get yourself to another level. That's a chance that you take. Is he doing that to set a bad example for the younger generation? No, I don't think that that's his intentions at all. I think his intentions are, to build more heart, more depth and character, more willingness to put it all on the line to reach his ultimate goal of being a world champion bull rider. And he did. Would I advise young guys to go ahead and start off doing that, or to switch to a hat from a helmet? No, I don't think I would. I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of my friends get their chest stepped on and die. I've seen guys get hit in the head, and I've had, everlasting brain injuries, not one. I've had several. Curtis Anderson's the one that you guys know the most of, that make a big statement about that. Ty Bosabon's another guy that you hear lots about, but there was guys that I competed with from down south that had bad head injuries that are still crippled for life. They're never, ever going to be the same, So do I think that riding with proper headgear is important? Yes. Do I understand why Kai Hamilton did what he did? Yes, I understand that too. So I really haven't answered your question on that.
I was more looking at it like,
because I can see it from both sides,
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
I can see it from both sides. I understand why he did what he did, and I understand why it's benefit to go about it the safe way. So I don't know. Maybe you have to ask Troy, because he didn't get a very straight answer out of me.
Look, mate, I think it's just personal preference at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I wasn't really asking about the helmet or hat question. That's totally personal preference, and I don't think they need to make a rule on a helmet, because a helmet's not saving a concussion. A helmet's saving face lacerations or maybe a broken bone here or there. I was more curious about the, we're not paid athletes in the sense that you don't get paid if you don't get on. So if Kai doesn't ride that next day, he doesn't make 150,000, and he maybe doesn't win the world. He's not in a position where he can, like, I just thought I saw to Elvis exactly though, Austin, where, I thought, wasn't it Curtis didn't he get hurt one day and then get knocked out the next day too? And that's essentially what happened.
He got knocked out in Innisfail on 20th June, give or take. And then he went to Pinoca and he just clicked his heels and got hit in the head. It wasn't a bad wreck. It was just a wreck that followed another wreck, and it changed his life forever, And so I got to see that firsthand. I understand the importance of taking care of a head injury and giving it the time that is necessary for your brain to recover before you put yourself in that, situation again. But, I don't know. I'm not going to say that bull riders are, the best businessmen or smartest guys on the planet. I mean, we're risk takers. We are, when we start doing that, and that part of you doesn't go away throughout your career. So when you've got the choice to decide, and you got a world title on the line that you've worked your whole entire life for, if the choice is yours, then you can bet what they're gonna choose.
We'd all
But
do
the
the same
thing
thing.
is that feels the same if you're at the FCA finals or at the national high school finals. It feels the same to you no matter what level or stage you're on. If you've got a chance to compete for a title, you're going to feel the same way as Kai felt, So I think if it's in as a rule, and the rules are the rules, and everybody knows what the rules are, and they play, you have to play by the rules or you don't get to play at all. I think that's the only way you're going to get around something like that. But if you're going to leave the decision to the bull rider,
Know what it's going to be.
He's going to say, "Put me in, coach," every time.
100%. Yeah.
Unless you feel like you can't ride. I mean, I've been there where I've been hurt to the point where I could ride through it, and I've been hurt to the point where I had to bow down and say, "No way," at the NFR. I know what it feels like, and it's not fun. It wasn't something I felt like I about to bust a face. I got on the next day because I thought, hell, it's a long ways from my heart. But boy, at first jump out of there, my head snapped back, and I knew that that was the only thing I could put my attention to. I couldn't withstand the pain that came. My eyes were so shut, I couldn't compete any longer like that. And unfortunate, but I still went back and tried again too, so I know how it feels, you don't want to give up. I worked everything I had to get to that situation, and so I give it one more shot. Didn't get hurt worse, but I give it another try.
Fair enough. Well, and you don't up to you on that one, Troy. We don't gotta go any further on it if you don't want to. I was just kind of curious where you guys' head was at with that, but Austin, you did explain it 100%. If it's up to the bull rider, we're always going to get on. There's no question.
Yeah, I hadn't much to do with him, but after having talked to Kai about it, he was saying that he couldn't see properly through it and different things like that, and he just felt more comfortable.
Balance too.
Felt like he rode better without it. So
yeah,
definitely. It looks like a piece of safety equipment, but like you say, if you get whopped down hard enough, you're still going to get your brain rattled.
There was one event that I wanted to ask you about, Troy. Fort Worth in the year 2000. You've got a good memory of. We've already been talking about things, so you can tell me about that weekend. It looked like you had a bunch of high scores in one weekend. Yeah,
well, that was back in the days when I was allowed to come and go as I pleased. As far as because back in those days, you were if you had qualified, for the Bud Light Cup, or it might even been built for tough. I can't remember, but if you were on that tour, you had to turn up, and so even to the point actually in 9/11 when Terry Dunn never turned up, they fined him heavily. And there was a big fallout over that because, one fellow never turned up. So, but anyway, they decided that Adriano was wanting to travel out of Brazil and I was wanting to go home, after 99. So they made the rule that we could come and go, as we pleased, world champion. So I'd done a few. After that, come over and do a few at a time. But Fort Worth was always the big one for the year. It was tough bull riding, and it had the most money up. And he always brought the juice as far as the bulls went, and that was sort of in the hub, I guess, of where all the good bulls were. And so I actually just come over for that weekend, and fortunately, things went my way and I got away with it. But I seem to recall, there's a couple of bulls that I was a few points on, but again, they were bulls that suited me. And I seem to recall Candyman of Russell's and Slam Jan of Terry Williams in the short round. And then there's another big brindle bull for me, second round. Can't remember what that bull was, but
Rimrock.
Yeah, it was just things fell into place that weekend for me.
So in the first round, you were 93 on Candyman. second round 87.5 on a bull branded 19 by the name of Rimrock, then 94 on Slam Jam in the short round. It just kind of, it stood out to me for you to average over 91.5 points a bull in 3 bulls.
Yeah, well, like I say, sometimes you find that there's bulls that suit you, and righties, my forte, I suppose, and big up and down bulls to the right, or most kind of the right suited me, and Candyman was a gassy little righty, and then they were all righties, mate, and into the wheelhouse. And like I say, some of the rides that people, I guess, remember me for might have been Pacific Bell and Red Wolf. Well, again, they were big up and down, strong bulls around into my hand. But if they had been hard, fast lefties, it would have been a different story. So you can be lucky and have things go your way in the draw. That's for sure.
What's you mentioned a couple rides there, but what were the most memorable rides in your career, Troy? And then Austin, I got to ask you the same question. But Troy, you're on it right now. Keep going. What's your most memorable ride?
Yeah, I suppose Red Wolf, just because of the circumstances and what it meant. I was last out at the World Finals, last out for the year, really, of the 97 season. And I was leading it going in there into the short round, and I was last out, like I say, and I had to be 89 to beat G-Man for the finals average. And I'd been on the ball earlier in the year, and he had his way with me. And like Austin said, there was a bit of an error about that bull at the time, because he stepped on Brent there only a couple of years before. So I think he put the bluff up a lot of fellas. So just having everything fall into place, and the time that I spent preparing for the World Finals, I was a big advocate for preparation. And we always had a time period between the last event for the year and the World Final. So I always use that time to be serious about me discipline and the training, and staying in the gym and trying to eat right and doing all those things. And that's what I try and teach the guys. I think that's what gets you over the line and helps you do and make those big rides, and when it counts, if you can stay the track and stay disciplined, and when that all works out for you, and you got a plan, and your plan comes together, and you pull something like that off for the whole enchilada, well, that makes for the your moments that you remember.
Well, and I got to ask you another one quick here then, because I'm looking at the World Finals, and you went 4 for 5 in 1999 as well, but also won the World Finals title in 1995. It paid, based on the stats I could find, you won about 56,000 in 95, and then it was 158,000 in 97. I think you won 100,000 for winning the average in 97. Is that right?
I think that'd be pretty close, mate. Yeah, because I think I got away with 157,000 or something for the finals. Yeah,
for the second one.
Yep.
97, and in 95 it was only the second final, so it was a little lighter. But what was it for you to go to those World Finals? And up until Robson Palermo only a few years ago, you were the only person that had won it more than once. What was it about those finals, though? You just mentioned going home. Maybe, I don't know if you said you went home, but there was a break and you really prepared for it. Was it the big stage that you really you knew there was a lot of money there? Like, is that, what was it that made you really step up for those big moments?
Yeah, well, that's what it was all about. Winning those kind of things that's what we all dream of. And so, winning the world title is one thing, and then the next biggest thing's winning the world finals, as far as I'm concerned. So, I mean, I didn't want to go into those sort of competitions half-hearted. I wanted to be ultra ready, and the only way I knew to do that was to be focused and disciplined. And I felt like that if I'd worked hard and trained hard and did everything I could in my preparation, well, then I felt like I deserved it. And then, so when you're getting ready for a short round like that and you're last out and you got 15 guys ahead of you, and the atmosphere is you can cut it with a knife at the World Finals, and there's the music and the announcers and everything's on the line. You've already rode 5, you're leading it going in there, and there's one ahead of you, and they're playing, Eminem, his weak arms are heavy, and there's vomit on your sweater already. Well, you can pretty well feel like a blob of jelly if you're not careful. So I never wanted to feel that way. I wanted to be ready, and I just felt like that I was ready because of the work I'd done. I'd put the hard yards in, and so and I also thought that in those situations, my dad always told me that whatever you do, always do this game for fun. If it ever becomes anything more than doing it for fun, you're probably doing it for the wrong reasons. And so even though, there's a lot on the line, I felt like that's what I did. Leading up to that moment, before getting on that bull, I just kept telling myself, I'm having fun. I'm here. I'm putting on a show. That's why I'm here. People want to see someone step up and make a rank ride when it all matters and when it all counts. And I thought, that's my turn. It's my time. And I'm going to enjoy the moment. Win, lose, or draw, or get my head jumped on. That was my motto. And I felt like I needed to be ready. And as it turns out, I guess I was a couple of times. There's a few times I wasn't, but fortunate enough, I was ready a couple of times for it.
What was the mental preparation side of it? You talk about the physical between the work and outside of it, and the way you were eating. But what was the mental side?
But the mental side, I suppose, is a work in progress, and it takes a long time to get to being that solid in your own mind and in your head. You got to go through a lot of failures, I think, before you get to being, that solid in your mind with it. I knew I could ride that bull. He was one that I would have picked if they would have had a draft. He was one that I thought suited me. He's big and strong and up and down, around into my hand. So I was fortunate enough to draw him. And then when I drew him, I thought, it's right up my alley. So as far as the mental side goes and the confidence, it's a work in progress, and you have to go through a lot of failures, I suppose, before that happens. But I always tell the guys, that I have to do with that, confidence is all in your head, and it's something you have to work on 24/7. And you'll get a lot of negativity coming in there, but you're the only one there. So 24 hours of the day, you're the only one there. So you have to work on that confidence. You have to toss out, the negative stuff and replace it with confidence all day. And the more you can do it, the more that you will reiterate that you're the man. If you don't think you're the man, and you don't do the work and you don't put the hard yards in, someone else will, and they will beat you.
What was that? Some of the messaging to Kai, if he turned to you for any advice in this last couple of years in his when he's been at this elite echelon too?
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about all that type of thing, and that's what I like. talking with those kind of fellas that understand that side of it. That's pretty cool to be able to speak to those fellas about that. Yeah, we kind of have a lot of long conversations on the phone, I suppose, about a lot of different things. But yeah, I think that's probably some of the stuff we talked about for sure.
Austin, I got to get back to you on the most memorable ride in your career. We kind of got off on a bit of a tangent, but I want to go back on your side of it.
Probably for me, it was just a ride. It was a bull that I had drawn down in Lewiston, Idaho. He was an old bounty bull. They'd run a bounty program and through the mid '90s, and they cut it off at the end of '96, and there was one bull that carried that bounty right through until August, and nobody claimed the bounty on him yet, and I watched Mike White get on that bull in Ellensburg, and at that time I thought Mike was riding as good as anybody going, and he really put out the effort. He was on cue to be able to ride that bull, and I watched him ride him for about 5 or 6 seconds, doing everything that I thought he could be doing right, and that bull just worked him and shook him loose and bucked him off hard. And I remember thinking to myself at that point, if I ever draw that bull, I don't think I'm gonna get on him, because I don't think I can ride that bull. I just don't. He's that hard, and I've never had that thought about any bull ever before. And sure as hell, 2 weeks later, I drew him, and then I had a choice to make. Pretty soon it was Merle Freeman and Jeff Whitlow and a handful of guys come by and picked me up. On our way, we were going to there in Puyallup and Armstrong, and that was first stop on the tour, And I got in the camper, and I had a good long talk with myself. In fact, I never left the camper for that whole entire trip, and all I did was just drilled it in my head. First of all, I had to get my head around the fact that I thought that there's a chance that I could ride the bull, and I'd worked myself eventually up to the point where I was pretty sure that that when I got there, I was going to get on that bull. If I was going to get on that bull, I was going to try and ride that bull, and I thought I had a chance to. And by God, I got him rode. And I was 88 points. It wasn't the best score of my career. But for me at that point, it was the best ride I'd ever made, because I felt like I'd rode the unrideable that day. And it really catapulted me forward into the fall run, and that's when I picked up some steam and went on to make the NFR that fall. So that was a big one for me. There were some other rides that come a little bit later in my career, and I got
how much you went on the bounty though. You got to tell us that part.
Oh no, I can't tell you that part. The pig, the fucking pig,
a keg,
the pig.
Oh,
Tough Hedeman.
Oh yeah.
Tough Hedeman rode him someplace in the week in between, and got the bounty off of that bastard. So I never got the bounty, and I never knew till afterwards. Boyd Ketchum says to me, he goes, "Well, I know how to ride him now." He says, "You get on the back of the chutes and you jump down on that son of a bitch and kidney stomp that prick until he's ready to beller in the chutes, and then you sock it into him and go." And he says, "That's how you're going to get him rode." And I thought, man, well, that ain't my style. I said, I don't even know how to even play that game. So I just went about my business the same way I always did. And I slid up and rode, and we got a whistle on him, But, later on, I met with Troy in Brazil, and we both had real tough draws in the progressive round that day. And I got on a bull that pretty notorious down there for putting people in the hospital and stuff like that. And it got in my head, and he bucked me off, and I thought I should have been able to ride that bull. And Troy had one similar to that, and Troy just left the chute spurring on this son of a bitch and made a fool out of this bull that they thought was notorious. and I couldn't believe it. And on the bus ride back to the airport, I asked Troy what he was thinking about, and he just said, "Mate, I've been on those bad bastards in 3 different continents, and he said they're all only so bad, and they only get so bad, and then you can make them even worse in your imagination, And I thought about that. I thought about that statement a lot for another year or two, notorious, and then I was able to come home and get on some bulls, like 666 Shiver and Shake was a bull of Kessler's he was all there. He was a big, mean, intimidating bull that he'd get in your head, and I was able to get on that bull and rode him twice, and he was a 90-point kind of bull, and not too many people wanted to get on him. Not too many people rode him either, and so I'm not sure if they were the best rides I ever made, but they meant a lot to me because they were just, that was a bull that nobody wanted to get on too bad, So, he's helped me a lot in that respect, and I never did forget that, and when I had an opportunity to get him over here to have a school and to help share some stories like that and shape the attitude and the mindset of these kids that are coming up. I was just thrilled that he would entertain that, and here we are now. So really looking forward to that.
Before we're done here, we got to talk about winning the PBR World title, but being on crutches at the end of the week. Just talk about that year, but still winning the world title despite being injured at the end of the week.
Yeah, well, it wasn't the ideal way to win a world title, I suppose, but that's what was planned for me, and that's the way it worked out. So it just so happened that I had enough points to see me through. And, I prepared for the world finals going into there just like I would any other, and then dislocated my hip. So, yeah, it was a bit of an anticlimax, really, in a lot of ways. But and when I won the world, it was like, because I'd won the world finals twice before, I knew I was capable of winning the world. But so it was more of a, because it didn't come down to the wire, and then I won, the world championship on my last ride, like some of them do, and in just great fashion. I suppose it was more of a relief actually to win the world than this great, exhilaration, I suppose. So, but by the same token, it was still amazing feeling, and that's just the way it worked out, and it is what it is.
Talk about the Global Cup and the World Cup side of things as a coach on the other side of things. Bull riding is not often a team sport, and it more so is now. But talk about those two events, then I got to follow up and ask about the current team series and what your thoughts on it are, and what the expansion of that might look like. It's not like there could probably be a Team Australia in the team series right now. The travel would be a little tricky. Same thing with Team Canada for that. But talk about being the coach and motivating your team and just what that looks like for you.
Yeah, well, that was a privilege to be able to do that. That they got me to do that, for my country. So anytime you're waving the flag or the colours of your country, you're always going to do what you can to represent it well. And so I really enjoyed coaching for a lot of reasons, and one of the reasons is that I like talking about things associated with guys riding at the highest level, because you can, I guess coaching is a sort of a thing where you're only limited to your imagination, and how big that can be. So I had a lot of fun with it, and the boys that I Yeah, and all the young men that I had that I was coaching in those days were all good lads and all worthy of riding for the Australian colours. And so it was a pretty amazing time, and we did a lot of things associated with doing it for one another and doing it for our country, and I think that was one of the reasons I think they performed. I thought they punched well above their weight. I might be wrong in saying that, but I thought they went really well, and it was a good time. It was. I'd do it again, and I'd love to coach again, but there's not a lot of jobs out there for a lot of coaches in bull riding. So, but it's definitely something I'd like to do again.
I kind of forgot that Macaulay Leather showed up to our Canadian finals in Edmonton and went 4 for 4. But what's your experience been of him back home? And he's got a lot of talent and probably going to win a lot. It looks like, isn't he?
Looks like he's amazing young talent, and yeah, he's got it all going on. And he's actually from a family of about 13 kids. That lad, I think, and yeah, he had a good year and pretty well dominated, and then he dominated, at our finals as well. So, and then he come over here and rode all his bulls into the bargain, and yeah, I think there's big things in store for Macaulay.
The technical side of bull riding, when you're coaching at that level, you're not, I'm assuming here, but you're not likely teaching the technical side of it when you're coaching at the Global Cup side. It's more of a mental, 99% or 100% mental and encouragement on that side of it. So we can move on and talk more about the technical side of it at the schools. But even then, it's probably still more mental, because bull riding is still more mental than anything, is it not? There's some of the technical side of it when you look at like the drop barrel, and I got to ask how that came into the schools too. But go with it as you wish from there on the coaching side and the teaching side.
Yeah, well, you're right. I think at the highest level, you're teaching guys that are riding for their country, so they know what to do, and regardless of whether or not they ride the way that the coach would like them to ride is probably irrelevant. So you have to just try and get those guys in the right state of mind and prepare them the best you can mentally. And there's lots of ways you can do that, and there's a lot of motivational things that you can do. And like I say, coaching's only limited to your imagination, so you can throw all kinds of things in there. And yeah, and I guess I think for me, I struggled with it early in the piece, because I always believed bull riding was an individual sport totally. And back in the days of the World Cup, when we went to Mexico and Brazil, and then we had the one in 2010, in Vegas, where we had Gold Coast at home, 07, Mexico 08, 09, Brazil, 2010, Vegas. I was of the belief, I think, in the first year that it was just individual, and I didn't really understand until I read Wayne Bennett's book. Well, he's probably the greatest Australian rugby league coach there is, and I read his book, and it led me to believe that there's such a thing as team spirit, and the team spirit really, you can, a bloke will go above and beyond his call of duty, I guess, in every way when there's team spirit. So that's what I tried to include in Vegas and at that third World Cup. And I thought after having implemented that, I thought the boys went a lot better. And then there was a bit of a break before the Global Cup, and I really enjoyed just trying to create different ways and means of trying to get them up on the day. That was a challenge, and all those blokes are different characters and individuals, and especially back in the days of the World Cup days, you know, I had Ben Jones and Jace O'Hearn and then the Farley boys. Well, they were completely different characters, and they didn't actually really get along. You know, obviously the brothers did, but you know, and then throw in the mix Dave Kennedy, who really never rode too much in the US, and Brendan Clark. Well, you know, there was a wide, diverse range of different characters. So, you know, to bring all those fellas together, and for them to pull together for their country and ride for one another was pretty cool to see. They were putting it all on the line, and they were all up on each other's shoots, and they would never have done that in an individual contest. So it's a really interesting and intriguing concept, I suppose, with the teams thing. And I suppose that's why the teams thing now, I'd say, you know, the PBR's taken how good it was at the Global Cup and the atmosphere it created, and took it into the domestic or national teams thing we have now.
What about the technical side when you're teaching on the school side of things? I saw that you have a drop barrel as part of your school, and I don't know much else, but that's kind of one of the fundamentals. That's kind of been something that I know that Gary LeFew has had at his schools. I don't know for how long, or maybe that's something that you implemented somewhere along the line too. But
yeah, well, yeah, that's it. It kind of simulates more so the action of a bull, or feels like more the action of a bull that's up and down, a jump and kick, than just something that swivels or, you know, breaks in the middle. The drop barrels, you know, like I say, simulates more of a feeling of a bull. So that's what that's for. But from a standpoint of the technical side of bull riding, I don't teach anything unless it makes sense to me physiologically. So there's an action and there's a reaction, and if it doesn't make sense to me in that regard, I don't teach it, or I didn't do it myself. And so I've broken it down. I started teaching schools from about 1992. I had my first one, and so the first thing I did was try and break down and work out in my own mind how I rode, and I spent a lot of time studying what I did so that I could, you know, these young fellas are paying me a decent amount of coin to come and learn. So I wanted to make sure that what information I was giving them wasn't just made up or some myth that I conjured up. So I kind of tried to break it down and work out, you know, the best methods, and what I come up with pretty much really was just it all boils down to physics. It's not rocket science. You know, the bull does one thing, and we must position ourselves in a certain position to be able to counteract it. So, and that's all I base it on. And anything other than that, I think, is irrelevant.
I want to ask about the drop barrel. Is that a Gary LeFew invention? Is that true, or who brought that up originally?
I think so. That's where I think it comes from, and it's a good invention. Okay. Yeah. And yeah, he's obviously, you know, Gary been the guru for so long. He knows his caper, and I teach a lot of what he brought to the table early in the piece, and took a bit out of it and added a bit to it, and come up with my own sort of way of teaching, I suppose.
What about the mental side? Is that part that you're teaching? I know Gary's are really big on the what do you call it? I want to say the mental side, but the psycho-cybernetics is part of it, and the visualization I want to say is part of it. Meditation might be a smaller part of it now. What do you teach that side, that way?
Yeah, more so with the advanced students. I don't get too much into it with the young fellows or the green blokes, because they're just still trying to learn the basics. But as it wears on, you'll find after a while, and you start to ride a few, and then you go into competition. Well, then the competition nerves kick in, and the whole fear of failure kicks in. So that's when the mental side of it starts to kick in. And so I'll speak more on that side of it to the more advanced guys, and I will talk to them as a group, regardless of their level, at some stage through the school, about what it takes to be a bull rider, or a good bull rider anyway, I suppose. And there's a few things that are pretty basic, and I think those same principles, refer to life. If you adhere to those things that make a good bull rider, you should be pretty successful in most things. I think it's all relevant. So I'll always speak on that on the Sunday, and then if I have advanced students there, well, we can go right into detail and right into depth about the mental side of it, and the fear of failure, and it's visualizing, and the confidence, and the good attitude. You can go on and on for quite a while about all that, actually. So, but it's all good stuff.
We could have a full show about that if you wanted to, but I've already kept you guys way too long. I better ask. Well, one more thing. You guys are you're not only doing, like, you guys are ranching Wagyu beef back home too, right? That's a big part of what you guys do at home. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much, mate. Yeah, we got a Brangus base herd, and then we put the full blood Wagyus over them, and then we keep some of their heifers, and then we go on and breed F2s. It's been good. For the most part, they've been better than commercial prices. So it's up and down. It's kind of down at the moment, but we ride the wave, and we'll go on with it. And pretty exciting times in the beef industry at home.
And you say that in a good way, bad way, or I'm not sure what you're saying there. Like, the beef business is good at home. Is it mostly going domestically, or is it going straight north for you guys up to like the Chinese side of things and Japanese, or like where you guys are exporting a lot of the beef to, or is it mostly domestic?
Yeah, well, of course we don't, but it goes to the processors, and then they send it. I think most of the Wagyu beef go, to the Asian countries. I think it's mostly, Japan, China, Korea. But I think with what we are breeding and producing is, F1, F2, where it's lower marbling score. So I think they might go domestically where EU accredited to. So I don't know whether it goes EU, but it's a good business to be in, and as far as I know, a lot of the people that have been into it have done well out of it, and we're going to stick with it. A lot of people get into it and get it back out of it because it goes up and down and fluctuates a little bit, and they don't stick with it, but we stuck with it, and it's been good to us.
You mentioned on the school side being a great bull rider and being great in a lot of other things, but I'm curious who you guys think. I want to touch on it really quick. Who you guys think were the greatest of all time, and we can talk. Troy, I want to talk on the world side of things, and then Austin. We've talked before a little bit about the Canadian list and how people rank, but Troy, I want you to start on the world side. I've had this question before, like, is it Donnie Gay, or is it Sage Kimsey? Is it JB Mooney? Is it Jose Vitor Leme? Is it Adriano, Chris Shivers, Silvano? I'm curious where you guys' heads are at in that.
Well, when I first started, I thought it was Tough and Jim, and before that, of course, it was Donnie, and then I think Justin and Chris come along, and they raised the bar a little bit, and then it was JB and Silvano, then it was like Lockwood and Lemmy.
Yeah.
But I'm a big believer in not comparing errors for a number of reasons. One of them was that because even though guys like Tough and Jim and Donnie those guys weren't getting on super ranked bulls every time. They were getting on plenty of ranked bulls, but they were doing a lot of miles, and so for the most part they were tired all the time and getting on big yank and eliminators. And when I first turned up and I was doing PRCA radio, I thought Tough and Jim were machines, because you'd see them and you might have been on the road for a week or two, and then you turn up in California and these fellas have got a flying U-bull. It's a great big brindle monster, and it launches out of the box and drags its ass and throws in a big roll and sees a clown and flies over there and sideways. And I think those kind of bulls are harder again to ride than the super rank buckers, because they're not helping you.
Yeah.
And those fellows were dead tired, and they still didn't. You couldn't knock them off with a stick. So, and I've no doubt, Lemmy and Lockwood and JB and all the guys of the later era wouldn't have adjusted to riding those bulls and being tired and riding those big rank bulls like that. I'm 100% sure they would have. But I'm also 100% sure that the guys like Donnie and Tough and Jim would have adjusted to being able to ride the super rank bulls, the boys are getting on today. So it's difficult to compare eras, and I don't particularly like to do it. I will say I think Chris Shivers was the most correct bull rider that I've ever seen. Still got the record for the most 90s. Record speaks for itself. He was impeccable with his top half, and he's pushing and he's reaching over the front. And his feet, you wouldn't even see him move, though. That's fast and hard and solid and on the mark. You wouldn't hardly see him move. So I thought Chris was, if I want to show someone, how to ride bulls properly, I'd show him a video of Chris Shivers.
Austin, what do you think?
On a world stage, I agree with really 100% with what Troy had to say. He asked me what I thought about on a Canadian side of things, and watched guys like Cody Snyder and Dale Johansson and guys like that when I was young, and I thought they were and Troy Dunn when I was young. And I thought they were great, and they were in their time against the bulls they were up against. They were real hard to beat, Then I got to compete with some guys that I thought were they were really hard to beat for me personally. Matt Roy, Kelly Armstrong, Robert Bowers, Justin Volz, Schiffner. Those guys all had periods in their careers that they were really hard to beat at the time, Nowadays you see, there's Aaron Roy's and Dakota Butters and, Coverchuck and some of these guys that are taking over now and even getting close to the end of their career, but they've been really good and for a long time. So you got to put them in the mix too. So I think the greatest of all time is a hard statement to answer correctly, because I think that when you're the greatest of your own time, that's really important. And so I think that if I could add on that, I think that the reputation of what JB Mooney has got today and at the end of his career. I think that what Troy was able to do in his career, is very parallel to what JB Mooney did in his career. JB rode the Dragon Slayer. He rode a lot of real bad, tough bulls, notorious bulls that were hard to ride. But they were, this guy, he rode Ugly, he rode Rampage, he rode all of them, all of them. And I don't remember ever seeing bulls that were notorious at their time that he wasn't able to get rode, and so he's legendary in my mind, and he always will be. I can call him my friend, and that could change as soon as he decides. But he's always going to be my hero, because I got to see him do some incredible things on the back of a bull. And so, that's something that you can't take away.
Last question for both of you guys. Austin, we'll go to you first. What's your definition of cowboy shit?
I think just having the confidence and the courage to go ahead and do things that scare you, on a regular basis. That do things to impress yourself when nobody else is watching. I think sometimes most cowboy shit that ever gets done, there's no witnesses for. And so that's cowboy shit. When you're trying to do it for YouTube or for Facebook likes and shit like that, that doesn't cut it for me, because I've seen lots of cowboy shit, and there wasn't nobody else but maybe my horse and my dog that got to see it.
Troy?
Cowboy shit to me, I think, is probably depicts Lonesome Dove. That's same what Austin's saying. Nobody's seen it. It's just they got the job done. Come, hell or high water, red hail or sunshine, they got the job done. And I love those old movies that depict fair income cowboys.
Anything else? Anything I missed? Anything else you want to get to?
Do you want to talk about? Well, Austin and I have a bit of a unique. What would you call it? A unique association, or because we both had to do with running PBRs in our respective countries.
You were both president of PBR Canada and Australia at the same time. Is that correct? Is that like when it first started off?
Pretty much, mate. Yeah. When it kicked off, PBR Global, we kicked off with the Global Cup the World Cup actually on the Gold Coast in 2007. So that's when it started. And
but back before that, when you retired,
yeah,
and to go on global.
Yeah. I guess we both retired in 2005, and that was the same year that Sean Gleason, I guess, had called me and talked to me about doing an international expansion with the PBR and opening offices and having offices in 5 different countries, and they asked me to head the Canadian division and Troy to run the Australian division. And so we got some history going back to that, sharing some of the struggles and the growing pains of getting things off the ground and getting the, support of the events, the promoters, the contractors and the contestants on board and buying into this whole concept. I think we had a lot of challenges that we had to face. We were facing the same challenges in different countries, but eventually it came to fruition, and we were able to get our main objectives accomplished, which was for these guys that were not Americans to be able to accumulate points that carried them a little bit closer to qualifying to a position on the Built Ford Tough Series or the Bud Light Cup. Getting them qualified a little bit closer to qualifying for the World Finals and that sort of thing, without having to spend their entire season on the road and in the United States, so they could start the year and get some money won and then go travel and see if they could build on that. And I think that was a pretty special thing. I think Aaron Roy was probably the first one come out of Canada that got, I think maybe Matt Roy and Bolts and some of those guys maybe did earlier on too. But to see that happen, it was very rewarding. We also got to experience that transition when Spire Capital took over the PBR and how it affected our positions with the organization, and how how that changed things. You know, it was different. It was definitely different. It affected things for the Cowboys, it affected things for us, and how our positions changed and our roles changed within the company. You know, so yeah, there was a lot that we experienced in the first few years of that global expansion.
And Jackie and I run the thing there at home for 10 years, I suppose, from 07 through to 16, and yeah, that was a good experience, and at least we got to go to the World Finals for nothing a couple of times.
Because otherwise, it probably wasn't very lucrative. I'm assuming here too, but like there wasn't. Speaking of challenges, like you guys are launching a new tour in a new country, and you're trying to sell tickets, and you're trying to get sponsors, and you're trying to make it good for the bull riders and for the contractors, and you're like it's not an easy job. And to see where things are at in both countries now, I'm proud of the work that you guys did getting it off the ground, because they're both in pretty awesome places right now compared to where they were in 2006.
Yeah, well, I think they're going like the Clappers. We paid out 75,000 for our Australian champion a couple of months ago, and it looks like a pretty lucrative tour, and fellas win a lot of money. And like Austin said, you know, there's pathways for them to get over here and to ride on tour on the televised series and so forth. So pretty fulfilling for us.
Now, Austin, it's something that you helped build that your kid can compete in a couple of years too.
I don't think so, Eddie. My kids are a long ways from sport. You know what? They can sort and load and handle these bulls, but they don't get on them. I got one of my cousin's boys is riding. Is that maybe Brody? Maybe one you're thinking of.
Cool that he can go do it though.
Yeah, you know what? If it turns out that he makes it that far in his career, you know, I'll be real happy for him. I'm happy for all these boys. You know, I got a belt buckle on right now from 2003, the PCB. You know, the PCB was the start of it. You know, before then, bull riding was all scattered out. Everybody had bull riding. There was 3 or 4 associations, and it was the Wild West, you know, and we helped to kind of rein it all in and get it under one umbrella. Wester was involved in that. Bo MacArthur was involved in that. Davidson too. We got it all in one umbrella. It was called the PCB. And it was until then that we got recognized, and that's when Gleason got a hold of me. I was president of that outfit. And he said, hey, you know, let's see what we can do. Let's get this stuff come to the PBR. And I said, all right, I'll sell the crew on it. And we did. And we started it up. And that's when the work began, you know. I went from towards the end of my career, I'd be only gone 20 or 30 days a year from my home because I had a ranch to look after and a family. And then I started with the PBR, and I was gone 200 days a year again. I was gone all across the country, and we were doing building negotiations and media buys and sponsorship, corporate sponsorship and television stuff. And it was a lot, you know, big sacrifice, big commitment to get things off the ground and get it operating and get it rolling. But, you know, it paid off because it started to send some of our Canadian talent down there, and where they were able to, feel at home when they got onto a world stage.
Did you guys sell the PCB to the PBR, or was it kind of did they absorb the events? What happened?
It just kind of rolled one rolled into the other. You know, the better events went one way, and the other events kind of went. You know, the smaller events, they kind of went down a different path. You know.
And what was it like in Australia prior to the PBR side of things too, Troy? Like, were there any PBR events in Australia prior to 2006, or like were there a couple one-offs, or how was it, and what were the other associations? I have no idea what that would have been like besides the APRA, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we started the CBR back in 2000, so Championship Bull Riders. And then because we couldn't start PBR because we actually could have used the name at home because it wasn't being used, but somebody else had it. And they were using it. They only had a couple of events. So we run the CBR for maybe 4 or 5 years, and then it rolled into there was a breakdown and a bust up and fallout, and it rolled into a non-profit organisation called Bull Riding Australia, and we had a full tour. Like the Bundy Rum series in the CBR from 2000 was going like the clappers. Like we had television, and that's really what broke us. That's what broke us up. We were on full tilt, going like the clappers on that deal there, and it could. Who knows what it could have been like to this day if that had continued. But politics got involved, and we rolled into Bull Riding Australia probably around 2003. So CBR probably went for 4 years, and we had a full tour. We might have had 30 events, and which 20 of them were probably televised on actual commercial TV. And then Bull Riding Australia, it ran there for a few years, and then when PBR, and it was the same guys running the thing. So when just before when I retired in 2005, Jackie and I and the kids went out to the PBR and met with Randy and Sean, and because Adriano and I had talked about having PBR offices in our neck of the woods, and so we went out and presented it to Randy and Sean, and that was at the end of 2005, and so then Sean turned up and had a heap of meetings at home in 2007, at the beginning of 2007, or might have been at the end of 2006, and by the time the middle of 2007 rolled around, we'd had our first World Cup to launch PBR Australia. So, and Bull Riding Australia went by the wayside as well, and PBR took all their events and the sponsorship, and away we went into PBR.
And are there some of those events that were big events in the CBR tour that are still large PBR events? Is that? That's
right. Yep. Yeah. Townsville, one of them, and Austin probably came out to the first CBR DYD Townsville event, and it's been our cornerstone event forever and still is. It's probably the only one that makes any sort of money. It's a 2-day event, and it's the best bull riding down home. And in fact, Glenn Young and I and Troy Dan actually started that event with our own money, and as it turned out, we lost the event somehow along the line, and the PBR now own it. They're the ones making the money out of it.
And what's your involvement now on the PBR side in Australia, Troy? I'm not aware.
No, we don't have anything to do with it. I could still go and judge probably, but I don't. I did my last job late this year probably, and so I got other things on. I don't have to go to any bull rides anymore, so I just do other things.
No TV commentary or anything, or broadcast or what?
They don't really have TV at home, so yeah.
It's the in-arena broadcast that goes on some of the live streams, maybe.
I don't think I'd be cut out for TV.
Not a TV guy. And Austin, what about you on the bull riding side of things? Like, besides this school and doing those side of things, what all do you have on the go that side in the bull riding world in Canada? Tell the folks.
All I do is have I got a handful of practice bulls around here. We buck bulls here out at the ranch every Tuesday night from 1st of May till then middle of October, and I help these kids get from kind of from a junior steer riding or junior bull riding stage and introduce them into real bulls, and I get them kind of off the ground for the most part, and get them to transition from steers to bulls, and that's something that I really enjoy, and it's my hobby. It's my hobby, and that's what I like to do. It's how I spend a good portion of my time. It's kind of led to hauling these same bulls to high school events and junior bull riding events and stuff like that. And I didn't ever care to be a stock contractor per se, because I'm always trying to put these kids on something that they can learn on and something that they can ride. And so I don't feel like I got anything in common with stock contractors, because they try and buck them all off.
Yeah. Well, thank you both. Thanks, Troy. Thanks, Austin. I appreciate you guys both doing this. This was awesome. Hope the school goes great for you guys.
All right, Mike. Thank you.
Thanks to Troy Dunn and Austin Beasley for making the time. Man, I really enjoyed talking to Troy. He had a lot of interesting stories, and just as far as like, I couldn't believe the part where he had a chance to have a share in the PBR and then didn't get it. But I think he still did good over the years on a few different parts. But if I were him, I'd probably have a bit of a sour taste in my mouth over all that throughout the years. So interesting, but congrats to PBR Australia doing such a great job with where it's at today, and Austin being a big part of the original PBR Canada back in 06, and to see where it's at now, it's pretty neat. But yeah, thanks again for those guys for making the show work. But Dustin, we were talking on the top half of the show about Cowboy Cerrone and getting on a bull in the PBR. So he's getting on a bull called Twisted Steel, owned by UFC president, I guess, Dana White, right?
Yep, that's right.
So I think this is another cool mashup. We're talking about mashups on the top of the show with Post Malone being at the American Rodeo. And, I think this mashup to have a UFC fighter, like actual legit UFC fighter who's, I think, just out of the game. Like I don't think he's fought lately, right?
No, I think he's like freshly retired. He's freshly retired, yeah.
Yeah, but did take on Conor McGregor at one point in his UFC career. Got his ass, he got beat a little bit on that one. He did not win that one. But Cowboy Cerrone on a PBR bucking bull. Last time anything like this was even close to happening was Chad Ochocinco, NFL football player. I think he was like a wide receiver, or I forget. I don't know. I wasn't into football at that point, so I don't know what Ochocinco did, but he got on a bull in Atlanta, Georgia. And they said the crowd for that thing was unbelievable. The amount of people that would come to bull riding that would never be at a bull riding before, like straight up football fans. And now we've got a guy in the UFC, which I think some of the UFC fans are probably closer to PBR fans than the average NFL football fan. But
it's like action sport. It's probably the same, similar demographic.
Yeah.
But what an amazing cross promotion piece. And I mean, I guess the UFC benefits, like it's all under the same, they're all owned by the same company.
Endeavor. Yeah.
Whoever owns the PBR, they own UFC. So there's obviously a connection there. But the minute Dana White puts out anything, the audience you have is enormous. It's amazing. Like, I can't imagine what that small, so it's $50,000 for him just to get on the bull, $100,000 if he rides them, but you would never get that kind of publicity on any of those platforms with 50 grand. Not even close.
No, like nobody would give a shit if Jose Vitorino was getting on something.
That kind of promotion. So
yeah,
super cool. What's your prediction on how long you think he'll last? Oh
man, I like the quote from Ty Murray. I probably better go back and find the exact quote. Ty had a quote in like there's a whole thing right now, Sports Illustrated doing coverage on rodeo and Western sports and whatnot. Hey, have you seen some of that lately?
No. Well, I seen the piece on. Was that the piece on Nick? Was that in Sports Illustrated?
Oh, maybe they've just got a ton of coverage lately. I think a little bit of it is a bit of.
There's a really cool story on Nick Tate's that's in there, and about him giving up a shot at a pro and junior hockey career to take on bull riding.
Oh, really?
And released around the event in Madison Square Garden, and I thought it was really cool how they talked hockey and talked bull riding.
Talk both. I think a lot of it is I don't know how it works, but I think it's a bit submitted by certain people. So like a lot of the stuff in there right now is Andrew Giangola, who's a PBR PR person, but he's written some really cool original stuff over there. So this quote I found in a story that Andrew wrote for Sports Illustrated. So it says, Cowboy Cerrone has as much chance of making 8 seconds on Twisted Steel as I do knocking out Conor McGregor. said 9-time world champion Ty Murray. And I'm going to go ahead and say that Ty's take on this is accurate because, I do got to give Cowboy Cerrone credit in saying that he has been on bulls in the past. And I think when I was reading up on it, he had, competed in high school and whatnot as a bull rider. So maybe that's kind of where he got his moniker. Like I think he grew up in it, but I don't know. Like, man, those bulls are hard. Like I couldn't imagine riding any bull in the PBR, let alone one that they did a mashup of like both of their records. And Cowboy Cerrone was like 36-3 in the UFC, and Twisted Steel, this bull was like 36-3 in the PBR. So I just it's like a 0% chance here. Like there's no chance he's riding this bull.
He's gonna
Not
get
in the
one.
middle.
No.
Oh, he's got to get on like I don't know. He's older. Like let me look at his stats here. How old is Cowboy?
He's got the mechanics and the ability to ride good bulls when
He's
you're
40
older. Remember
years
when
old.
the PBR did the unfinished business that year,
That's true.
and the old boys came back, but
They were world
they
champions.
got the bucking bulls. Yeah, it was all Mike White and Chris Shivers.
Michael
And it was-
Gaffney, JW Hart.
It was really cool, but at least those guys like knew how to ride ranked bulls and like
Yeah, when they were 40.
but this isn't even close. This is not a chance.
I think that some people that don't know a lot about it will be very surprised when they be like, okay, this guy's a professional athlete. He might be 40 years old, but he's just got totally annihilated by this bull in half a second. Maybe these bull rider guys are legit.
Yeah.
Like I think some more of those UFC guys might take notice, and I hope there's a ton of them there. And I think it would be cool though if there was somebody in the UFC that like maybe was a borderline guy, maybe like not a top UFC guy, and they're like, shit, I'm not making it in the UFC. Maybe I should go into the bull riding side of things, and they like kind of take that as a jump, like a switching sports within the same company. If they're an endeavor guy, they're like, oh, I'm just going to jump to the PBR instead. They're an athlete and they can learn how to ride bulls, just like a bull rider could learn how to fight.
Yeah,
I wonder like kind of what that would look like.
Correlation. Remember when we were supposed to go to China, they were training some local China athlete that was like an equestrian to ride bulls. So
Yeah,
it can happen.
yeah, it can. So 0 chance that he stays on, but 100% chance that the money is going to go to the charity either way.
Yeah. And my prediction is 1.5 seconds. Like,
Well, I'm not even giving him a second. I'm giving him like 0.
he's gonna shoot bulls. I think he's gonna open up his hand, he's gonna get blown out of there, and that'll be it.
I think it's going to happen so fast. Yeah. I'll be surprised.
But again, it's cool to see all the cross promo and to see the PBR come up in those kind of platforms and
100%.
multi-sport marketing. It's good for everybody. So that's super cool.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to watching it. So if you hadn't heard yet, Cowboy Cerrone is going to get on Twisted Seal from Dana White, PBR Buck and Bull at the PBR World Finals, AT&T Stadium, Arlington, Texas, May 18th is the date during the World Finals there. And I guess they got like Kid Rock's Rock and Roll Rodeo that weekend. So it's going to be another crazy week of Western sports there in Arlington. Going to be a good.
Yeah, they're doing a good job of, they got Kid Rock involved. I think Cole Hauser's like their official spokesman in the PBR. So,
yeah,
reaching out to some heavy hitters to get out of the market. And I mean, there hasn't been a lot of celebrity. I mean, I think didn't Sylvester Stallone, didn't he have some bulls at one point or have sharing some bulls? Or
I
was
don't
on?
know. I remember he was at the event in LA and he was on the shoot with Dakota Butter at one point.
Yeah, it's a big
Maybe he
question.
named a bull? I forget now.
Lots of cutting horses and stuff, but I think he might have had a share in a bull. And like, who's the NFL player that had all the bucking bulls? He kind of brought
Jared Allen. He was in for a long time.
He brought a new crowd to PBR with his NFL following and stuff. So it's always good for the sport when they do that kind of stuff.
Well, funny talking about Jared Allen because he had his Jared Allen's pro bull team back in the day and he had his guys. And I think he was. Yeah, he was. And I think I have to go back and listen to their show, but I think Jared Allen had a big push on the team side of things. And I'm kind of surprised he's not still like hadn't jumped back in at some point, but he probably spent a lot of money and didn't make any money at the time and maybe got sour on the whole thing, but like he was
just gone.
Pardon?
It's like then he was just gone. Like it was just disappeared.
I don't know whatever happened, but I know he was a big part of the teams thing back in the day.
Yeah.
He wanted to kind of change the game and it just kind of hit it the wrong, maybe different timing here. But anyways, I don't know where I was going with that, but I appreciate the cross promotion on the different sides of things. 100%.
Can't wait for me. It'll be a good show.
Absolutely. Okay. Speaking of new stuff, though, too, we've got some new cowboy shit. Check out the website, cowboyshit.ca. We've got some new gear out there. There's a hoodie called Desert that's just hitting the shelves. Make sure you check that out if you haven't yet. It's going to be a hit here on the clothing side of things. Yeah, Dustin's got the 99. This one never made it to the website, but you can probably still get. You might probably get a couple still at the Cheyenne Frontier Days gift shop. Make sure to check out Cheyenne website. They got a couple branded pieces that are just made for Cheyenne, so we're gonna have some new ones this year as well. But make sure to check out the website. Got some promos going on right now. Always, there's lots of stuff going on. Make sure to check out your local Western store. Get yourself some cowboy shit, maybe a Montana Silversmiths jewelry set for your lover for Valentine's Day. It's coming up soon. Don't forget about that. It's always gifting season out there. Yeah, or a cowboy shit buckle, maybe Montana Silversmiths, or a necklace, or a dog tag, or anything you can dream up. Maybe some new Canada West boots. There's some new styles just hitting the shelf. It's the promo hour, Dustin. What else? What do you got for the promos?
You know what? Just get that cowboy shit. We were at Lamley's downtown Calgary tonight.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Seen some cowboy shit gear, so it's out there, people. Go get it.
Love it. No excuses now.
Cowboy shit wild. We seen cowboy shit hat in Vegas this week.
Really?
Yeah, we seen one
person.
Seen one at the airport. We've seen some cowboy shit at the last Roughnecks game we were at, so it's just good to see it still bopping around.
Is it allowed to be on the screen at the Roughnecks game? I know it's a little more.
We'll put it on there.
Yeah.
We're having a Roughnecks rodeo theme game night April 20th, so we're
420.
420.
It's gonna be a lot of people look like this at that one.
Yeah, it'll be hot.
Hey, but it's legal in Canada. It's okay.
We don't condone it.
Yeah, but it's 420 at the Roughnecks rodeo.
Be there or be somewhere else.
Or whatever. Or that's it's cool. Hope to see you there. Anyways, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks to our guest this week. One more time, as always, Mr. Sean Morton and Miss Storm Defoe. Thank you all for listening.
Son, there's only one thing to set your soul free. Wasn't no easy street where I come from. There wasn't no sleep until the work was done. About the fires of hell. If you wanna drink the water, got to go to the well. The Cornerstone Church trying to curse my soul, but the good Lord give me that rock and roll.